Yeah, awesome. For those of you who might not know much about the Communication Leadership Program, or ComLead as we like to call it, and as you'll hear us referring to it throughout the session, it's a graduate program at the University of Washington in Seattle, offering communication degrees in digital media and communities and networks. The program has been around for more than 20 years now. And the program's dynamic and applied curriculum leads students into transformative roles. During their time in the program, students build the necessary communication knowledge, strategies, skills to manage content, information, systems, people, and change. As for the students pursuing the program, we have people from all kinds of backgrounds, early career, mid-career, and even people with about 10 to 15 years of work experience. Geographically speaking, we have students from around 21 countries who are in the program, including China, India, Taiwan, Russia, Germany, and lots more. And I think a lot of you are from several of these countries as well. So we'd love to know more about where you're from, where you're originally from, maybe. Yeah, I'll just move on to talking about a little bit about myself now. Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy. I'm from cohort 19, which is basically we started the program in fall 2019. And I'll be graduating from the MCDM track, which is a digital media track, this March. I'm originally from Mumbai, India, and I have about 4 years of experience in content strategy, content marketing, and development. After joining ComLead, I've worked as a social media and outreach intern at a UW department called the Global Innovation Exchange. And I've also been working as the outreach coordinator with ComLead. And both of these opportunities, I basically found them through ComLead. And one of the ways we kind of share job opportunities within the community is weekly jobs emails that go out on every Monday. And both these opportunities I was basically able to find through those emails. And I think we'll get to talking a little more about that later. Isabel and I were talking about what are the couple of things we could share about ourselves. And I think the two things we decided was one thing we appreciate the most about being an international student at ComLead and UW, which is the University of Washington. And one tip each of us knew before we joined ComLead. So I think the one thing that I really appreciate about being an international student here is basically the chance to work, interact, and make friends with people from, like I mentioned earlier, all over the world. It's a really great experience in kind of learning how to work in a multicultural setting, especially if you intend to work in an organization that is pretty global. So you eventually end up working in multicultural teams. So this is like a great first step to figuring out how you can adjust in something like that. That is like specific to ComLead. And in terms of the UW in general, I think there are lots of organizations on campus that make the international student experience really worthwhile. One of which is called FIUTS, which is a nonprofit organization that works on campus, which does a wonderful job of connecting international students across programs and departments with each other. So they have a bunch of events right now, all of which are virtual, which enable these connections between people. There's language learning programs, there's games nights and stuff going on right now. And when it was in person, we used to do a lot of hikes and other outdoor activities. So it was all of those were really wonderful in kind of being able to make connections outside the program as well. And one tip I wish I knew before joining ComLead. So I'm someone who doesn't do really well in like super large networking events. I'm not that great. I mean, now I guess I am. But earlier I wasn't that great at kind of, introducing myself to like 200 people at a networking event. So I feel like I wish I'd learned about everything that goes on within ComLead, like all the networking events that we had, all the workshops that we had, everything outside the classes. I wish I was better prepared with knowing about all of those things before I came here. So that I think I would have made better use of the events that are available at ComLead. So I feel like that is something I wish I had figured out earlier. Yeah, okay, enough about me. And now just Isabel to go ahead and talk about herself.
So hi everyone, I'm Isabel and I'm from cohort 19. Different from Kiati, I'm in another track. It's the Masters of Communication in Communities and Networks, how we called it, MCCN track. And I'm from Taiwan. So for my work experience, I'm like more at my early career. When I was in Taiwan, I used to work in the news industry as a digital news editor. And then after I joined ComLead in September 2019, I had an internship with the International Examiner. It's a Seattle-based newspaper. And then that internship, so I found out that internship through a ComLead job newsletter that we'll be sharing with the students and alumni I think every week now or bi-weekly. And throughout my ComLead experiences, I also volunteer with our COVID-19 consultancy task force to assist a nonprofit organization called Congolese Integration Network as a content strategist. So we also have like some other partner programs, but this is the one that I got matched with. Aside from those, I'm here, so I'm also a student ambassador for the Communication Leadership Program. And one thing that I appreciate the most about being an international student at ComLead or being a student at UW, as we call it Husky, is that I really have a lot of the resources and networks I need at hand. So now I've actually graduated last December already because I took class during summer quarter. I felt like during my job hunt, it's really useful. Like I can reach out to our staff to ask for people that they recommend that I can reach out to, networks that they know, or resources at UW related to career consulting. So I felt like that's one thing that as an international student, it would be really hard for me to access if I don't have a degree or I don't have any networks at the United States or at the university. One tip that I really wish I knew before joining ComLead would be like, so you guys are here, it's really great. And then I feel like if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of our staff, students, or like people you can find on our u.com lead website. Because when I was applying, I do have a lot of questions, but I was like, I didn't really reach out to any people or alumni to make the ask. But I felt like ComLead is actually like a big family. Like once you'll know someone in here will definitely be there for you to help you get all the information or resources that you want to know about us. So yeah.
Awesome. We intentionally wanted to keep like the intro part as short as possible because we wanted the session to mainly be about answering the questions any of you might have. If you have international student related questions or like specifically to the international experience, great, go ahead and ask them. But even if you have any other questions about the program or the application or anything, please feel free to ask us the questions. What you can do if you'd like to unmute yourself and turn your video on to ask us the question, great, please feel free to do that. If not, you can also send in your questions in the chat, whether on the comment chat or individually, privately to either one of us. However you want to go ahead and ask your questions. We just like kind of want to make sure we're addressing any queries you might have with this session. Isabel, when you mentioned the COVID consultancy, that reminded me of the volunteer project I also worked on over summer. Through that I also worked through the COVID consultancy, which was where I worked with this education company in Seattle, who they have workshops all across the country, and I was able to kind of do like an ethnographic research interview and work on a marketing strategy that I recommended to them with another com leader who actually recommended me for the position. So that reminded me of that. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Ask us the question.
Hi, my name is Karen.
Hi.
Hello. I heard that you guys, well, at first you said that you admit well, let me try to formulate the question.
Sure.
I know that everyone, you have plenty of backgrounds in comedy, but is there any minimum requisites of education that you need to have in order to be accepted into this program, or does your major doesn't really have to do with if you will get admitted or not? I don't know if I make myself clear.
Yeah. Do you mean what you have your undergrad degree in?
Yes, because I've heard that many of you have degrees on like I don't know, journalism or more like social humanities sciences.
Mhm.
And I wanted to ask if, for example, me with a major in engineering, if that's still like an acceptable background, or if it is too far away from what you guys see in this master's program.
That's a great question. So I think, so like to specifically answer your question, it doesn't really matter. There is no specific like stream or major that's required for you to be eligible for the program. But what I would also like to add to that is that I, instead of looking at what your background is or where you exactly come from, I think what people in the program kind of look for is what you want to do after the degree or what you want to do with the degree. So like if you kind of talk about the gap between where you are and where you want to go and how Complete fills that gap, then I think you're good. So you don't have to worry about. So I think there's this one alumni. She did marine biology. I'm not sure her undergrad was in sciences, and she was specifically with the intention of becoming a science communicator. Is how she joined Comlead, and interesting story. Now she's working as a UX content designer with Microsoft. But basically, she came from a science background and was able to kind of make the most of the program. So don't worry.
Okay, thank you. That was
Yeah,
my
thank
question.
you.
I think we have a question from Michelle. Michelle, do you want me to ask it for you or do you want to ask yourself?
Oh, I could, but I just like to know what field are you guys in right now, and I guess how has the program helped you achieve your role, or kind of give you a direction into the role?
So I can go. So as I mentioned, I graduated last December, and then in between, I actually went back to Taiwan for my original plan was to went back for just a short break, but I ended up staying for like 6 months. And I came back last August, but I started job hunting around October. I felt like the field I'm looking at is more like content strategy, brand strategy, and I felt like Kang Lead really helps me learn more about how content creation or how user experience, user interface is about, because back in Taiwan, this is still like a relatively new concept, or even like the job title itself, I've never heard of before. So after joining Kang Lead, I took some classes, and then because some of our instructors, they are really working in the industry for years, they have relevant experiences and professional background. So that really helps me to build up my portfolio. So yeah, I think that's like, now I'm looking for roles in comms related and brand strategy related. How about you, Kiati?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar for me, where I did come from mostly like a content focused background, and I had little exposure to content strategy and content marketing. I was more on like the development and just specifically social media side. And the little exposure that I had because I worked at a startup was what got me interested into looking for a program like Comlead, because I felt like I needed to do a degree, to pursue a degree to get those skills. And that's the reason I got into Comlead. And I feel like I will graduate this March, and I am also in the middle of my job hunt, like Isabel said. And I think the classes that I've taken, the people that I've met, and the people that I currently also have the chance to talk to, I still may not have done that, but have the chance, the community basically that I have access to through Comlead, is all falls really wonderfully into being able to get into what I want to do with the program, which is content strategy, specifically marketing content strategy. So it's kind of similar for me.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Andrea, would you like to ask the question, or we can just address it? Okay. Best resources that Conley has given me so far. Yeah, like I said, I think the biggest advantage, I think, like for me, that the program has is the community. because especially when you kind of move to a whole new country or a whole new city, you kind of have to start building a community from scratch, especially if you want to look at that professionally as well. But with ComLead, you kind of have like easy access to that and already established and pretty tight-knit community. I don't know if there are lots of other programs that kind of have this strong of a network, wherein, for example, I think Isabel mentioned that earlier, if I do come across someone who's been in the program. So there's a mentorship program that ComLead is offering this year, and one of my mentors, Armin, he completed the program in 2005, which was quite some time ago, and he's still pretty much in touch with a lot of people in the program. And he was the one who kind of took the initiative to get in touch with the mentees that he had. And I've basically had 3 meetings with him now and kind of able to talk about all kinds of professional stuff with him. So no matter how long or like how diverse the backgrounds people come from, I feel like the community is really tight knit. So that definitely for me is one of the best things this program offers, professionally speaking. What about you, Isabel?
I also think that, so if you go to our website, like the ComLead website, you can actually take a look at the background of the instructors. So what I felt like it really helps me is the classes itself. Like, so in ComLead, we say that you can create your own career map, or like the classes, like create your own courses. So I felt like the instructors, they are really very helpful. Like, even though you finish your class, we still have instructors that would tell me like, so I know that you're really interested in pursuing this career. Just don't hesitate to reach out to me if you need any further guidance on this related field. And also, like, I can direct you to someone that I know in the network to help you have clear goals, or like clear ways of how to achieve that goal. So I'd say, because I'm also like in the early career, and then the reason why I joined ComLead is because it's really networking oriented. It's not academic at all. Well, you can make it academic, but it's very like professional, career oriented. So it really helps me build up my portfolio, like with all the classes I take. I put the projects that I did on my own portfolio, because now I'm in the job hunt. Like, whenever I'm applying through application portal, they will always ask about your LinkedIn profile, your portfolio. So I feel like confident enough to share that because I've been using ComLead's courses to build up my portfolio. So I think that's definitely one thing that ComLead's really different from, already answer your question, only different from other graduate programs, and helped me work towards my professional goals.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just want to confirm, what do you mean by cover sheets for resumes?
Starting.
Hi.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
All right. So yeah, I just meant as far as for the deadline that's coming up in February for the program, you know, one of the things they look for is the resume, and I just wondered if you guys were using cover sheets in that when you guys submitted the resume as well, or is it just the resume along with all the video, essay, transcripts?
So like by cover sheets, do you mean like the cover letter that you usually would submit to, for example, for a job application?
Yes, yes.
I don't think I submitted any additional cover letter. It was the statement of purpose, and the resume itself. I don't think there's anything extra that I submitted beyond what's already listed on the checklist.
Me neither.
Sorry, is that a like statement of purpose on your resume, or is that something?
So the resume is different. I basically, for example, I have a 1-pager which just lists my experience and my education. So that's just that 1-pager that I submitted as my resume. And then I submitted my statement of purpose, which is the other requirement on the checklist, which is basically talking about your background a little more and why you want to do the program.
Oh, that's the 500 words or less?
Yes.
Okay. And then also, I guess my second question was, so before entering the program, what did you guys see as your biggest strength and your weakness? And then now that you guys are towards the end or done, do you guys see it the same, or do you see there might be a new, better strength or something else that might be different than when you first started the program?
Thank you. Great question. Isabel, would you like to go?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It got me thinking. I think before I joined the program, because like I said earlier, I come from like journalism background. So I felt like in news industry, my biggest strength would be like like I'm more sensitive about like writing communication pieces or like storytelling skills, because that is also one thing that the hiring committee or like our staff would be looking into in your video, the video that you submitted. So I guess that is also, so that's my biggest strength. And also I feel like after Com Lead, I really honed that skills by doing more of a visually presentable things, because I'll do it like orally, it's better. And then something like I write, but it's also like in Mandarin, not a lot in English. So with that, I feel like Com Lead helps me to build up that presence. My weakness, I think like I mentioned earlier, because I really want to, long-term goal is maybe to have a career as a content strategist, but I feel like I don't have a lot of experience in tech industries as we're speaking right now. So I'm still like trying to figure out a way. I'm doing a lot of info chat or coffee chat, as we mentioned, with alumni at ComLead. So I think I'm still at the stage of figuring that out. Like, how can I strengthen my skills and really start a career as a content strategist in the tech industry by talking to a lot of alumni now working in those industries. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I think, like mentioned, because I come from a content development, content creation background, I did just a little bit of marketing, and that too because I was working at a startup. That was something that I ended up doing, and I really ended up enjoying it. But while I was doing that, while I was working there, I had the freedom to experiment and learn by myself, but I felt like I wasn't making as much progress just trying to do some self-learning in an area like that, which is why I decided, which is like, so my strength was content, but I also wanted to develop the weakness, which is like the marketing and branding side of it. And even though I think I had a little exposure to content strategy, I think my biggest growth kind of with the program has been in learning like a lot more. For example, I kind of come from the marketing side of content strategy, and with the class that I'm taking this quarter, that's more about the product and system side of content strategy. So that was something I had very little information or knowledge about, and I've kind of been able to develop that. And another class that kind of really surprised me was a research class. So I did ComLead because I wanted to do a professional program. I wasn't that interested in an academic or research degree. But then there was this one class which was ethnography, which is a type of research. And I decided to take it because I thought that's my only attempt at trying out research and what could go wrong and stuff. So I just decided to do it. And I feel like that's probably been one of the most rewarding classes for me in the program, because I was able to kind of work on an entire research project over 10, 11 weeks. And even though I didn't think I would be able to apply that anywhere, like professionally speaking, I think the first volunteer project I did over this summer, that was where I was able to do ethnographic interviews with the partners of the organization. And I just kind of suddenly saw the link between what I was learning and what I was also being able to apply in like real life. So I think things like that have helped me really grow in areas that I didn't have that much exposure in. So yeah, I think that's the weakness area I've been able to work on with the program.
I think also add on what Kathy mentioned earlier, so she mentioned about classes. So I think another thing that really helps me is that we have a class called crisis communication. And I never thought like in the news industry, I'm actually doing something related to crisis, but I always tend to be like panic whenever like breaking news happen. But with this class, it really helps me. We have this framework that the instructors share. So I feel like those really help me think about more structurally as how do you do crisis comm, or how do you come up with more of a structured crisis or communication strategy or communication plan in general. So I think that's my strong suit right now, I think.
Class size, great question again. I think so. The cohort that starts every fall, our cohort was around 87 or 88 people, but cohort 20 was around 100 people when they started in fall. But also because this year things have been so unpredictable and so different, they also offered the chance to kind of start the program in winter. I don't know what that looks like for 2021, but what they do is the core classes that you do when you start the program as a whole cohort are around 88 to 100 people, only in the 2 core classes. All the other electives, anywhere between 15 to like I think 35 people, depending on the professor and how they want to structure the class. So most of the classes I took had around 15 to 18 people, and a couple of classes I took had around 30 people.
Next question.
Michelle, we'll get your question after the 2 questions in the chat, if that's okay.
Okay.
Would you like to talk about MCCN as well?
I think so. The way CommLead works is that you can have, we have track neutral and the class that you would take for your own track. And yes, there are definitely classes that you can take outside of the digital sphere. As what I know, there are classes like communication strategies for inclusion and equity, communication for advocacy. So you can go to our, yes, like what Kiati has pasted the link, you can go to the courses list and look at what classes that we offer over the past few quarters. Our classes will be changing at time, not all the time, but yes, the answer is yes. You definitely can choose classes that are not related to digital.
Yeah, we do have a lot of, sorry, continue.
I took the communication for advocacy class. So it is really about the like diversity, equity, and inclusion works. And you really work with people there. Well, you did mention some numbers when you're quoting in the communication plan, but it's not like digital related at all.
Yeah, I was just going to say I do know of some people in the program and people who've completed the program that haven't gone to any kind of digital or marketing roles. So I know someone who was in cohort 18, Falak Sood. She came from an HR background from India, and then she got here and she completed ComLead. And while she was, I think she still hadn't graduated, she got a job at Microsoft as like a program manager. And recently she got a job at Amazon, and definitely as a program manager. So that is something she wanted to stick to. She didn't want to kind of venture into like a digital or comm space specifically. So there are definitely lots of people who, depending on what courses they pick in the program, are able to kind of create a path or career that's outside of the digital sphere. Biggest challenge in CommLead?
This is a great question.
It's also pretty vague, but I feel like, okay, so I think the ethnography class that I mentioned, like I said, I didn't have any background in research, and I just decided to like challenge myself mostly because most people who had known the professor or had taken that class had told me that she is probably the best ethnography professor there is. She's basically been in the field for 30 years now. So that was the biggest factor that helped me decide that I wanted to take that class and just kind of challenge myself with zero background. And there were people like me in the class who had no background in research, 2 people who had basically done that like almost all their professional lives. So there was like a whole range of experiences in that classroom. But those entire 10 weeks that I spent in that class were probably the most challenging, but also most rewarding for me, because like I said, I was able to learn an entirely new skill and apply it throughout those 10 weeks. And even though I didn't expect to kind of be able to use it professionally, I immediately also was able to do that. So I think it was challenging and rewarding.
My answer to this question would be language, but in that way, I meant like to really be as a native speaker is kind of hard because I took a class, it's called Copywriting Fundamentals for Marketing. It's a track neutral elective, and then 3 Sundays from 9 to 5 p.m. But in that class, we have to really work with nonprofit organization, or depends on the instructor's project client for that quarter. But in that class, we have to work with nonprofit organization that really need help to build their website or to build their website's copywriting. But because my mother tongue is not English, in that class, the challenge I faced was like the instructor will be very critique on the word that you use because you want to make your copywriting as succinct as possible. So I might have problems like grammar or like some language context I don't actually know. So that's probably the biggest challenge I have met so far in ComLead. But also told me like there's a lot of room for improvement for me.
Awesome. Michelle, would you like to ask a question now?
Yeah, it's kind of related to the resume. I was wondering if there was a section where we list like our extracurriculars, leadership, volunteer positions, or should we try to fit that into the professional resume?
Professional, what do you mean by professional resume?
So like my resume has all like professional experience with like internships and full-time roles. But if I wanted to showcase like what I did during my undergrad and leadership positions, where would I put that? Or is it even important to showcase that?
I think whatever from your background that you feel like adds to your application, you should definitely find a space to showcase that. So I think you would definitely have more space to do that in the statement of purpose. But even with the resume, it depends on what all you already have in your resume, right? For example, I think this is like general resume tip would be like if you have around say 10 to 15 years of work ex, then your resume would be focused on your professional experience, not so much like extracurricular stuff. But if you're super early career, then that stuff is equally important to kind of showcase what you've already been working on even before you kind of have a lot of professional experience. So then if you are early career, that would definitely be like helpful.
In my case, because I did a field study for the first master I got in Taiwan, I did a volunteer work with a Taiwanese non-government organization in Kenya. So my statement of purpose and my video are all circling around that. So in my case, I put that in my resume at the very bottom part though, as like more of like to give the ComLead staff more of a holistic view about your purpose over the passion or what ComLead can offer you because of this volunteer experience I had.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
That's another great question. Would you like to go? How to overcome a language barrier?
I'd say because like Kiati mentioned earlier, with our cohort, we have 86 or 85 people, and a lot of us are from different countries. So I am not, I would really build a network or like a genuine relationships with the classmates, and then not too afraid to make friends with them, reach out to them either on LinkedIn or on social media or maybe in person, like a small gathering, but not a lot of people, to really learn from their culture. I think that's just not to be afraid of using the language, I think.
Wait, I have a question. Do you mean by language barrier, do you mean like English as a language, or do you mean like language barriers between people who speak different languages? I mean, I guess we have answers for both, but.
Or do you mean by professionally?
I guess professionally, it depends on what classes you take, like Isabel mentioned. Okay, thank you for the clarification. I think like Isabel mentioned, if you want to take a class like copywriting or like a super focused comms class um, that where it's really important to kind of have a mastery over the language, then I think it's a different thing. But there's also a lot of other classes that you can take, or if your career path that you choose is like that, where you don't have to have that kind of like super successful English language skills. You can still kind of be successful without it being your native language. So professionally speaking, I think unless you want to take a class like that and pursue a career like that, I don't think it's like mandatory to kind of have like 100% mastery over the language.
I think it's for the commonly courses. So we will have small groups discussions. We'll have group projects. So you have to, it's like more about collaboration, works with your teammates. So both like in class settings or like small group settings, I'd say definitely not be afraid to speak up, to share your opinions with your group mates or with the instructor. They value your ideas. Like, don't be afraid of language barrier, because like fake it till you make it. The more you speak, the more you share your ideas, the more comfortable you will be. So I think that answered the question. That's how I do. And apparently I talk a lot, so.
I think you're right. Like just the more you keep doing it, I guess the better you get at it. And like I said, unless you're worrying about it like in a super professional or a specific career setting, I think it's totally okay to kind of not have a complete mastery of the language. As long as you're able to communicate your ideas and your opinions, you're perfectly fine. It's cool. Does anyone have any more questions? No problem. We did cover all the questions that were earlier.
Or maybe do you think, because we have one question. When are most of the classes weekends or weekdays? So most of the classes would be during weekdays, but at night, because lots of our classmates are having full-time jobs during daytime. So classes may be for weekdays, classes may be from 6 to 9:50, or there are some shorter class, but maybe 2 times a week. And also there will be a few classes that will happen during weekdays, but it won't be like every weekends, during weekends, but it won't be every weekends. It will just be like maybe 3 or 4 full weekends day from, like I mentioned, the copywriting class from 9 to 5, but we'll be taking breaks in between. So don't worry about that if you're having a Zoom fatigue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. I think you guys already addressed some of the similar question. So first, I'm not like my undergraduate is in finance, and then I have some work experience, but that is not like communications related. And even though I meet the GPA requirements, but I think that is not kind of like really high. And do you guys have any recommendation for me to do better in the application or my personal statement, or is it still possible to get in or something like that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I think like I said, I'm sure you have like pretty convincing reasons to actually be interested in this program and how this program is going to help you advance professionally. I'm sure there's a reason behind why you want to do it, right? So I feel like as long as you're able to communicate that well through your statement of purpose, for example, and your video where you're able to talk about why this program is important for you professionally and how it kind of fills that gap that I mentioned between where you are and where you want to be. I think that's a great way to kind of look at it and make a case your application.
Just to add on what Kiati mentioned, so don't worry about that. I think you can use your statement of purpose and your video to really share like your strong motivation of why come lead, what's your goal and for your career, or like what you can provide come lead in the future after you graduate. I think that would help. At least that's what I did.
I think just quickly to add to that, another thing I thought of is that even though you technically might have a different background, I'm sure there's like a lot of transferable skills that you've picked up in your different background that can like easily transfer well into ComLead and the new career you want to pursue. So you can also think about what you can bring from your current background that can be your strength, because like you have a different background that is definitely a strength. It's different from someone else's. So you can think about what you bring with the background that you have and talk about that. Sure.
So I think we have a question about visa.
So by visa sponsorships, do you just mean like or any kind of financial support to be able to pursue the program?
No, I mean, I'm not sure how to say it, but for example, if you apply to a job and they give it to you and you don't have legal permission to work in the US, usually the company kind of takes care of all that procedure for you. Like, I don't think they pay for your visa, but they kind of do the thing necessary to get it. So is it similar here, or how does it work?
Yeah, so I think that would be after you complete the program, like once you start working or when you're working on your OPT, if you're on an F1 visa as an international student. So technically, from what I know, I think in the first 12 months of your OPT, you don't really have like an organization doesn't have to sponsor your visa, so you don't really have to worry about it. But the thing that ComLead kind of helps you with a lot is providing you with all the information that you need as an F1 visa holder. And there is also this other department on the UW campus called the ISS for international students, and they kind of provide all the support you need to be able to focus on all these different visa related procedures that you need to keep in mind. So there is definitely a lot of help that's provided there. And like, for example, with ComLead, we have like an immigration lawyer who works with ComLead, and she does workshops with us a couple of times a year, or if we need maybe more, where she kind of helps us out and answers some questions for us if we have any. So there's definitely lots of support there as well.
I think that's one good thing about ComLead as well, because ComLead is actually a STEM program. So a lot of the people majoring in social science that I know, they don't have that long of a visa. So this is definitely one thing. If you're looking to work in the US in the future after you graduate, that's a value that ComLead can add to.
Yeah, that is Michelle's question as well. And yes, you're right. So ComLead is a STEM certified program. So we definitely have the chance to extend the OPT beyond the first 12 months. Right now, it's up to 36 months, so 2 more years after the first year. No problem. These are all great questions.
I like that we have a lot of questions from you guys. We're here to help. Ask us anything.
And also, if you think about any questions later, you can like get in touch with us. So we also have like someone who is a current student is handling our Instagram, for example, Rini, our cohort mate, our classmate. So you can just get in touch with us in different ways. If you have any more questions, you can get in touch with us via LinkedIn. And I will also be sharing my email ID. If you have any questions, you can send me an email if you have like lots of questions that you need answered.
I can share my LinkedIn profile too. I can also share yours.
Yeah, thank you. If you want to reach out to a professor or administrator with specific questions, who would you recommend? Again, great question. So if you have like logistical or technical questions about your application or about the program, you should reach out to Heather. She is our head of student affairs. I will quickly go look for her email ID as I speak. You can even just send in a question. So she also handles the ComLead at UW email ID. You can send a question there. And she'll definitely get back to you. She's amazing with all the answers she always has. And for a professor, it depends on if like what classes you're interested in, and if the professor has a background in like an area you're interested in or a particular class you're interested in. I think every professor, at least the ones we know of or the ones we've interacted with, whether we took their class or no, is super open to kind of answering any questions you might have. And I think you can just access their email IDs on the faculty staff page on the website. You can send them an email with any questions you have, or if you'd like to know more about what their class or anything. And from the people we know, they're all definitely very, very responsive.
And I just put Kiati and my LinkedIn into the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us as well.
For the videos and statement, did we share more about our life and passion for this, or did we come with a very big story? So for my video, I think I spoke about a couple of specific instances, that like the one I shared earlier about how my experience at my previous organization, where I felt like I needed to develop these skills. And there was a specific campaign I was working on where I realized how lacking I was in certain areas. I spoke about a couple of those instances that kind of got like attracted me towards looking for a program like ComLead, and that's when I came across the program. So I spoke about specific instances in my video because you don't have a lot of time in the video to kind of talk about everything you'd like to. So I talked about a couple of instances, and in the statement is where I put in more details about my background, kind of expanding on what was there on my resume already. So that's what I did.
For me, like I mentioned earlier, for me, I think I come with a very big story because that way I can go deep, and that was also because it really changed my view about my career or my passion. So that was like during my volunteer trip to Kenya, and like really see how poverty has an impact for people, and how the organization I went with, or like those grassroots, can really help by implementing those skills or well, I'm rambling, but it's just I can share the video. I upload it on my YouTube channel if you want, and you can really get. I think that storytelling is important, like how one story can help you, or how that story helps you to find your own ComLead experience, can be really helpful. I may find my YouTube. I can paste it in the link. I also remember when I was trying to write down when I was trying to write down the script, I have at least 3 people help me look at it to really think of, as a viewer of this video, am I telling an impactful story or not? It has to be genuine. It has to be I don't like when people watch your video, they can resonate with you. So I changed my script at least 10 or 15 times. It really takes time. Okay.
Yeah, I think I also sent, once I had my video, which took me like 5 or 10 retakes. Once I was like kind of happy with the version I had, I also sent it to quite a few people to kind of get their feedback. And then I had a little more confidence in the video.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I just put my video in the link in the chat room.
If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to ask us. And if you, I mean, you don't have to hang around. If you have, like, if you're done or you think your questions are answered, you can feel free to like end it. So I think today's session is like our last like specific student ambassador-led sessions, but we do have sessions coming up in February, March, and April. Especially the one in April, which will then be for like admitted students and everything. So if you do have questions, like I said, feel free to send them to us before the Feb 1st deadline. But then even after that, if you think of anything, you can just feel free to come attend the sessions and kind of learn more about the program, the people, or maybe just kind of, get to know more people in the program. We will have like a session a month in the next 3 months.
Bye, guys. Thank you. This was really useful.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Again, good question. I think for the cohort 20 application cycle, there were about 400 people, 400 applications that had come in, and about 100 were accepted. I'm not sure about the number of like total number of applicants for our cohort, which was in 2019, but for 2020, there were close to 400 applications. So that would be around a 20 to 25% acceptance rate.
I also want to share, like, so you asked about statements of purpose earlier. Like my experience in writing that is that you have to have a strong hook at the very beginning of the opening. Like, because imagine like a professor will be reading tons of statement of purpose, and how do you make them remember you is very important. And also you can make a structure or like write down things of your personal or professional experiences, and then circle the things that are really related to what you're seeking to learn from the program and why you're a good match for the program. And also just to talk about one thing for each paragraph. Don't talk about a lot of stuff, and have a story for each statement that you're trying to make. I think that would be really helpful. I personally think personal statement is the hardest part.
True.
That seems like it's just like 500 words to tell the whole thing.
I can't really hear you.
I was saying, yeah, it does seem hard, especially with only being able to tell it in 500 words or less. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to kind of like really figure out what exactly you want to say. I think like if people personally, I feel like if you don't have a word limit, you might not know what to cut down on. But if you have that kind of like a requirement, you will have to cut down on and to really focus on what you really have to say.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate all you guys' answers and stuff today. It was very, very helpful.
No problem. Thank you for your questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.